1984, Langhus, Norway. Population 5,000. Picture a nondescript Norwegian house, alive with a sound unlike anything this quiet town has ever heard. Inside, 16-year-old Øystein Arseth, better known as Euronymous, is huddled together with two schoolmates, Bjorn Stubberud, known as Necrobutcher, and drummer Kjetil Mannheim. Euronymous, an ambitious teenager with a mind teeming with music, crafts powerful riffs that reverberate through the walls of their makeshift rehearsal room. He's the leader, the creator, the architect of a sound that will become a defining genre. Their shared passion? Metal. Of the darker kind. Black Sabbath, Bathory, Celtic Frost, Hellhammer, and Venom are just some of their influences. It's Venom's 1981 song, Mayhem with Mercy, where the trio get their band name from. Simply, Mayhem. They initially cut their teeth playing covers, culminating in their demo, Pure Fucking Armageddon, before regrouping to release their first EP, Death Crush, with Sven Erik Christiansen, aka Maniac, on vocals. Its initial release of 1,000 copies, released through Euronymous' Poser Corps label, sells out rapidly. But Maniac departs in 1988, and that's where our story really begins. Mayhem seeks out a new drummer and a vocalist. They find the former in local drummer Jan Axel Blomberg, better known as Hellhammer. And in 1988, they find a voice, one that resonates with their music's chilling tone, Per Yngve Olin, a Swedish vocalist otherwise known as Dead. Dead isn't just a vocalist. He's a spectacle, a whirlwind of raw emotion that wraps itself around each word he sings. His haunting voice intertwines with Mayhem's music, giving it a sharper, more chilling edge. Dead, all of 19 years old at the time, is haunted by struggles with mental health and has a fascination with death, becoming the first black metal vocalist to wear corpse paint, a look that would come to define the genre for years to come. As Necrobutcher puts it today,
wasn't anything to do with the way Kiss and Alice Cooper used makeup. Dead actually went into to look like a corpse. He didn't do it to look cool.
Indeed, it's not just for show. Dead's fascination with death transcends his stage persona. He buries his clothes to smell like the grave, and he inhales the scent of a dead crow before performing live. At the front of his stage, a pig's head is impaled upon a stake. To unsuspecting crowds, he's like something straight out of a horror movie you never want to see. But anyone thinking he's just a Gene Simmons God of Thunder impersonator is proven wrong the moment he picks up a blade. In front of an audience of onlookers, he starts drawing deep cuts down his forearms. Blood gushes onto the stage floor, onto audience members in the front row, before he licks his own blood off the blade. Chills are sent through the audience as the line between a heavy metal show and the echoes of a tortured soul crying out for help, ringing out from the stage, become blurred. The reactions of his bandmates transcend emotions, concern, disbelief, shock, awe, perhaps a hint of fear. But despite witnessing Dead's troubling behavior, they remain largely dismissive, focusing instead on their relentless pursuit of their art, black metal. It's in 1990 that the band moves to a remote house in the forest to rehearse and write songs for what would become their debut album, already 6 years in the making by this point, De Mysteris Dom Satanas. But this doesn't strengthen the bond between band members, it threatens it.
Dead and Euronymous got on each other's nerves a lot and weren't really friends at the end.
While living in this remote house, Dead's mental state continues to deteriorate. His fascination with death reaches its crescendo. Dead sits alone in the house, sitting on his bed. He picks up a blade and begins to draw one long, deep line down his left forearm, blood gushing all over the sheets. He then takes the blade and does the same with his other arm, but he thinks the blade is too blunt. So he then takes it and cuts his own throat. But he's still alive. He might be bleeding profusely, but he musters up whatever energy and life he has left in him, picks up a shotgun, and pulls the trigger. Remnants of his skull and brains splatter all over the bedroom wall. And beside him, a suicide note.
This is the blood, but I have slit my wrists and neck. There was the intention that I would die in the woods so that it would take a few days before I was possibly found. I belong in the woods and have always done so. No one will understand the reason for this anyway. To give some semblance of an explanation, and I'm not a human, this is just a dream, and soon I will awake. It was too cold, blood was coagulating. My new knife is too dull. If I don't succeed dying to the knife, I will blow all the shit out of my skull. The last salutation, may I present life eternal.
Postscript to his suicide note, he suggests he didn't come up with this now, but 17 years ago. And he also leaves lyrics to a song called Life Eternal. One of the lyrics in this song perhaps best captures the pain that Dead felt, and I quote, "To release the soul, one must die. To find peace inside, you must get eternal." Dead's death sends shockwaves through the small but vibrant Norwegian black metal community. And while most are devastated by the news, Euronymous isn't. Having discovered Dead's body, he doesn't first call his family or the authorities, but picks up his camera and takes graphic photos of the disfigured body. He collects fragments of Dead's skull, making necklaces out of it that he would distribute to people he deemed worthy in the black metal community, something later confirmed by fellow band members. Euronymous even starts a rumor that he had made stew with bits of Dead's brain, but this the band members refuted. To him, this was an opportunity to make Mayhem look like a dark and evil band. He saw it as a commercial opportunity of sorts. Euronymous defends his actions as paying homage to Dead's spirit. To some, it's an embodiment of the essence of black metal, but to many others, it's exploitation in its darkest form. As Necro Butcher tells it,
Euronymous called me up the next day and says Dead has done something really cool. He killed himself. I thought, have you lost it? What do you mean cool? He says, relax. I have photos of everything. I was in shock and grief. He was just thinking. So I told him, okay, don't even fucking call me before you destroy those.
Necro Butcher is so appalled by the behavior that he leaves Mayhem, leaving the band, now just a two-piece, in a state of flux. Unfazed, Euronymous opens a record store in Oslo in 1991, which he names Helvet, which is Norwegian for hell. The record store becomes a sort of clubhouse for the emerging black metal musicians of Norway. Many bands can be seen taking photographs in front of the store, including band members from Emperor, Thorns, Dark Throne, and Immortal. It was the influence of Euronymous that caused several of these bands to switch from playing more technical death metal to raw black metal. Meanwhile, a new force of Norwegian black metal is emerging from Bergen, 450 kilometers or 300 miles west of Oslo. There, a 19-year-old musician is making a lot of noise with a handful of demo tapes, which he makes a point of having production so bad that it's barely listenable, true to the supposed ethos of Norwegian black metal. He's passionate about his craft, but his vision for black metal is distinct from Mayhem's. He believes in a more atmospheric, melancholic sound, a stark contrast to Mayhem's raw and intense style. His demo tapes make enough noise to get the attention of Euronymous, who by this point has changed the name of his label to Deathlike Silence Productions. The musician Varg Vikernes, aka Count Grishnak. The band Burzum. Euronymous, despite his competitive nature, recognizes talent when he sees it. He extends a hand of collaboration towards Varg, offering to release Burzum's music through his label. And in 1992, Burzum releases its self-titled debut album, with Varg playing all of the instruments and assuming vocal duties. A unique one-man force. The album receives mostly positive reviews, with Sputnik Music today writing that Burzum's self-titled LP is essentially early black metal, influential, fresh, and telling of the era. It is strongly repetitive, but despite this, the songs do have varied and interesting parts, which are more or less good ideas, stretched out longer for maximum effect. The album becomes popular amongst Norway's black metal scene, so much so that Euronymous starts feeling the pressure to finally release Mayhem's debut album. And while Per Yngve Olin is dead, figuratively and literally, and Necrobutcher is no longer in the band, life goes on for Mayhem. But finding a new vocalist isn't easy. Initially, he briefly recruits vocalist Occultus, who leaves, curiously, after receiving death threats from Euronymous. Euronymous then recruits several session musicians to join the fold in 1992, as they head into the studio to record Mayhem's now 8 years in the making debut album. The musicians: Blackthorn on rhythm guitar, Hungarian singer Attila Tihar, and on bass guitar, Burzum's Varg Vikernes. Initially, their collaborations are fruitful. They present themselves as militant, misanthropic devil worshippers in interviews. They want to spread a trinity of hatred, sorrow, and evil. Interestingly, even the Church of Satan is deemed too humane by their standards. The form of Satanism they embrace is a direct inversion of Christianity, with Euronymous being the primary architect of this ideology. He espouses totalitarianism and stands against compassion, peace, happiness, and fun. Isan of Emperor reflects on these times, stating that the intent was to create fear among the people.
The scene desires to be in opposition to society, leaning more towards embodying evil than adopting a structured satanic philosophy.
But many who knew Euronymous say his extreme satanic image was just a facade, a stark contrast to his actual personality. This includes Necrobutcher, Ketil Mannheim, Vikernes, and Blackthorn, all of whom had intimate knowledge of Euronymous. They say his devil worship is a lot of smoke, but not so much fire. Varg himself would later say that the claims to advocate evil were designed to provoke. Some bands in the black metal scene are more interested in pre-Christian Norway and its pagan traditions and Old Norse gods. And there is an undercurrent of romantic nationalism in the black metal scene. Some scene members also flirt with Nazi imagery. With this backdrop, Euronymous and Varg bond as Norwegian black metal musicians do in the early 90s, by burning churches. In the next episode of Battle of the Bands, church burnings and murder. You can follow Battle of the Bands on Twitter and Instagram at BattleBandsPod, and you can also find us on Facebook and YouTube. Sign up to our mailing list at battleofthebandspod.com to get notified every time we drop a new season. I'm Steve Glaveski, and this was the Battle of the Bands.